Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to go over how you are going to create a title block for your drawings that you're going to use for the rest of the semester. Now, a simple internet search, you can find a whole variety of different title blocks. I'm going to show you a couple examples of ones that I use at my company, and that's going to be our starting point. For those people who cannot come to Acopian at all, there is a program available to you. You can go to the school's website and do a search for it. It's called AppStream, APP space stream, that you can basically use the computers at, or the software that's on the computers at Acopian from your dorm or from a laptop. Now, with anything, you know, some people have Macs, some people have standard computers, some people have towers. Don't wait until next weekend or the night before the assignment is due. If you're having IT issues with AppStream or something like that, you'll want to contact Professor Rosenbauer, Becky Rosenbauer. You can send her an email if you're having technical issues with AppStream. But with AppStream, you can access CAD. Okay, so one of the things that I want to show you is, I'm going to start sharing my screen. So the icon for CAD, that the version of CAD that we're going to use is called Civil 3D. Okay, the one that's on the computers there in Acopian is 2020. I have 2018. They're nearly identical. You won't see much of a difference, but it's Civil 3D 2018. So if there is not an icon on the desktop, if you go down to your start menu and just start typing Civil 3D, you'll see that there is Imperial. Okay. And then there is also the metric version. You're going to want the Imperial version. Everything that we're going to do. So you see you have Imperial and metric versions. Imperial is foot and inch, not metric. Okay. So start off by launching the program. Now, even if you're working from one of the computers in Acopian, the program does take a little bit of time to load. Okay. So you launch the program. And while the program is loading, I'm going to show you a couple examples of other things that I have done title block wise, okay, to give you an idea of the flexibility that you have in creating your own. Okay, so different either companies you work for or different review agencies will have different requirements. For example, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, PennDOT, their cover sheet is prescribed, meaning you don't have flexibility in what you show. That is the way the sheet looks. It varies for job to job based on the information, like how big the plan set is, like the number of sheets and all that. But this whole border and this lower right corner is prescribed. That's all set, that you're allowed to have certain things and you're only allowed to have that. Okay. So there's one example. Let's look at another example. So you can see this is all in the lower right-hand corner. So let's take a look at another example. So the rest of the drawings in a PennDOT set look more like this. So a PennDOT title block has actually two components to it. it has this component here in the upper right corner where it lists some information, the district, the county, things like that. Districts are PennDOT specific. You don't see those anywhere else, but county is, you know, wherever the county is located in the particular state that you're working. Okay. And it has a revision block. Revision blocks are pretty standard in a title block. It tells you how many times something was changed, when it was changed, who changed it, and a brief synopsis of what and why. Down in the lower right corner down here, this is set out for you by, they say this can only be 5 inches wide by 3 inches tall. Okay. Are you restricted to that? No, absolutely not. You can make yours whatever you want. Do a little bit of Google searching and see what you like. Different firms, much more involved, much more technically complex than others. This title block is fairly simple by design. Okay. And then also in this title block, you can see to the left of it, there's room for 2 registration seals. Okay. PennDOT requires their drawings to be signed and sealed by a professional land surveyor and by a professional engineer. So there's room or space on both of, or on all of the sheets to show that. And then on the cover sheet, if I go back to that real quick, what you do as an engineer is you sign across your seal. You'll sign it and you'll date it. Okay. So then the cover sheet in a PennDOT set is the only sheet that gets signed and sealed. So this is one example. Okay. Let's look at another example. Okay, that looks quite a bit different. So this one, you can see it's just sort of a little ribbon on the right-hand side. So this is the logo for the company that I work for. This is the logo for our client at the time. This little spot here is for a registration seal, but you see we have a standard block that says it's a progress print. It hasn't been approved yet. Okay, the plan isn't ready to be recorded, so it's blank right now, whereas in the PennDOT drawing you saw the seals were on there. This also has right up here a revision block, the title of the project, the title of the drawing, okay, dates, a scale bar. So all drawings have a scale bar. All drawings have a north arrow. Most drawings have legends, notes, things like that. Okay. For what you're submitting, you're focusing just on the title block. So this one, you can see it's just a sliver that's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide on the right-hand margin of the page. Let's look at another example. So this is the last example that I think I want to look at. Right. So this one, you can see the ribbon is down on the bottom of the sheet, readable from the bottom rather than readable from the side. Okay. So typically it's either in the corners, along the right margin, or along the bottom margin. Okay. Same kind of information. Okay, this project was for Mercy School. It was a Boy Scout Eagle project. The city wanted permits, so we signed and sealed it. You can see there's a north arrow on here. There's a scale bar on here. Again, for your drawing, you can have them if you want. You can leave those blank because sometimes those are specific to the drawing that you're working on. Like a cover page or a note page, you wouldn't have any sort of scale bar or note because you're not making any sort of plan drawing picture out of it. Okay. You can see I put in logos here and the name of the Eagle Scout and stuff like that. So the first decision you got to make is how you're going to orient your title block. Okay. So let's go into Civil 3D or CAD and get started there. Okay, so when you first open up your drawing, a new drawing, you'll see something similar to this, not identical. So all of these little buttons represent a different command. Okay. Each one of those commands does something specific. It's a bit overwhelming the first time you look at it. Okay. But what I want you to do the first time you open the drawing, down here on the bottom, this is called the command line. Okay. It's where you can type in commands. And it's where you can see what's going on in the program. Okay. On the command line, when you first open up the drawing, if you type the word config, CONFIG, okay, this options screen will pop up. Okay. Depending upon who last used the program, there's tabs along here along the top. First one is files. The second one is display. Okay. One of the helpful things, if it's not on for the first time you're looking at this stuff, is to turn on your tooltips. So there's a little button here that says show tooltips. So what does that do? If you click that on and hit apply down here in the lower right and then hit OK. If I don't know what any of these buttons mean, if I hover over it just for a second, you see you get a cloud that appears. So initially all you get is, okay, this is how you draw a line. But then if you stay hovered over it, it will show you a bit more of a detailed explanation. See, if you leave the cursor in place, then it expands and you get a little more. Okay. So that's one way of remembering. Okay. Another way of remembering, if you hit F1, this help feature will pop up. Okay. It has a search feature and you can type line. How do you draw a line? Okay. How do you draw a polygon? Okay. We'll talk about what those are here in a second, but this is just a way for you to remember or help remember what things are. Okay. Once you get proficient with it over years of experience, you may or may not want to turn those off. They may become more of an annoyance than a help because you know where things are. Okay. But until you get started, it's helpful. Now, the second decision that you need to make about your title block is how big of a sheet you want to use. There's 3 basic sheet sizes. Okay. 24 inches by 36 inches, 30 inches by 42 inches, or 36 inches by 48 inches. You can use any one of those sheet sizes you wish. It's kind of up to you. It's kind of up to you if you want your title block to take up the whole border. So the title block is bound by an outer line, okay? A border line. And unlike Word or Excel, that border line is always shown. I'm going to go back and show you. See how you have this perimeter line around the drawing? Okay. Most of the drawings that I've used and created, it's a single line. You can create multiple lines. So let's start off by making that outer border. Okay. So you see you have these white crosshairs. When you first open it, it may take up the whole screen. It may only take up part of the screen. If you want it to take up the whole screen the way mine is, that's under display and it's here under crosshair size. So if I change that to apply, I changed it to 27%. I just slid it. So you can see how my crosshairs are a bit smaller. I go back into config. I can go into display and make that any size that I want. I have mine set to take up the whole screen. Maybe that works for you. Maybe you want to make it something else. Okay. So for starters, everything in CAD should be in separate layers. Okay. So each item or each element should be on its own separate layer. Okay. I don't mean every single line. I mean all of the lines that make up the border should be on a separate layer. So if you go up here, this icon right here, I'm going to hover over it. It's Layer Properties Manager. Okay. And it has sort of a field next to it that tells you what the current layer is that you're working on. Right now, I'm on layer 0. So this drawing, we have pre-set up with preloaded layers. So when you open the drawing the first time, either in Acopian or with AppStream, you might only have layer 0. Okay, so don't expect all of these layers. So this little green check button is to set a layer current. And then over here, looks like a little sun or a starburst. It says new layer. Okay, you can click new layer. And I'm going to make a layer called border. I'm just going to show the outer border. And I like the color blue, which is right here. So your primary colors are right here. 1 is red, 2 is yellow, 3 is green. This light blue, which they call cyan, is 4, 5, 6. So each of the colors, right? Each of the standard 250 colors, you can use. You can also use True Color and create it with red, blue, green, the standard shadings. I've always just used the standard 250 color palette. I haven't really ever had a need for more. I don't really use it for like Photoshop or photographic or those types of visual elements. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to change my color to blue. Once I have it set the way I want it, I'm going to hit apply. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm ready to start drawing. I just want to draw my border for starters. Okay, so you have lines right here, and you have polylines right here. The polyline looks like a little curly Q tool button, and this is just a line with 2 points attached to it. Okay. A note about command entry. Okay, there are always at least 3 or 4 different ways to enter commands in CAD. And it's not meant to overwhelm you. Some people use the tool button. So if you just click the button, you can see down here on the command line, it says, oh, you want to draw a line. Okay, let's say you don't like the tool buttons. They're too confusing. They take up too much space on the screen. You can type out the word line and it knows that you want to draw a line. So I'm coming down here and I'm selecting the command line and I'm typing the word line. Each command has something called a macro, which is a shortcut to the command with 1 or 2 letters. So the shortcut to draw a line, instead of spelling out the word line, is just type the letter L or L. Now let's see what LI does. No, LI is list. So I typed LI and I got list, but L is just draw a line, or you can type it out. Okay. Polyline or P line is a line that has multiple segments that remain connected. Let me show you. So here's line. I draw a line and I have a line that has multiple segments. If I look at this and I grab it, each one of these is a separate element. Okay. So I'm going to erase these. We don't really need them. I just did that to show you something. I'm going to switch my layer to my border layer. So you can go up, and then the little green check button is set current. Okay. Or you can go to this little pull down and grab it. Let's say I was still on layer 0. I don't want to be on layer 0. I can go down and just select the one that I want, and it'll show you what layer you're on. Polyline or pline, or this icon right here. If I have a line that has multiple segments, if I try and move this, each of those segments are connected as one element. Poly many, polyline. It's one line technically that's made up of a bunch of different segments. Okay. So those are two of the basic commands you're going to use to create your title block. Okay. Now, you can draw lines by coordinates. You can just pick an arbitrary point. Okay. Let's say that I want the lower left corner of my title block to be located at coordinate 0, 0. Okay. I'm going to do it as a polyline or a multi-line segment line. So it's one piece. So I'm going to type out pline. Okay. And I'm going to start my line at, so I'm typing down here on this command line, right? So if you go down and you hit the command line with your left mouse button and type pline, it asks you for a starting point. You can just grab a point like with your left mouse button and click, or you can say, I want to start at 0, 0. And it knows that you want to start at 0, 0. Okay. Well, where is 0, 0? I just drag to where I can see, right? Where is 0, 0? It's off of where I'm viewing. So what you're viewing is your zoom, how far in or out you're zoomed in space. Okay. So if you type Z for zoom, again, or you can spell out the word zoom. See down here on the command line, you can zoom all, you can zoom center, you can zoom dynamic, extents. These are all different ways that you can zoom in and out to view what you're looking at. So I'm going to type Z and then extents. Okay. Now, if you have a mouse button that has a scrolling wheel, I'm going to scroll out or scroll in with my scrolling. Okay. So I know that this point down here, this one, is 0, 0. Okay. You have to start at 0, 0? No, of course you don't. You could. So now I'm going to go back to pline, and I'm going to go back to 0, 0. Now you see how I can draw this at any angle I want, right? You can also, on this command line, draw an arc in a polyline, or you can undo. Like, I don't like what I just last did. So it highlights the first letter of what it is you want to do. So if I want to undo, I just type U, and you see how it undid that last line segment? Undo that line segment. If I want my cursor to be perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical, that is called ortho. Okay, you can turn orthographic on or off with this little icon down here for ortho mode. Okay, right now it is off, which means I can draw a line at any angle. So I can access it two ways. I can access it by the little tool button down here. Now you'd have to search for it, or it tells you F8 toggles it on and off. So the F8 key on your computer toggles it on and off. So I just toggled it on. So you can see I'm floating up here with my cursor up above the line, but it's only letting me draw a horizontal or vertical line. Well, that's helpful, especially for drawing a title block that I want to be square. So now I need to make that decision. Am I doing 24 by 36, 30 by 42, or 36 by 48? So I'm going to draw all three real quick so you can see it. So I'm going to make my title block 48 inches wide. So, and I'm going to make it 36 inches high, 48. Now, I could, at this point, right, I could go back to the beginning and tell it to close it. So I can go down here and type C for close, or I can select close. And you see how it closed that last line segment for me. Well, that's handy. I'm going to zoom, extends. So Z, enter, E, enter. And then I get my border. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing again. Applying. Pick a spot. Instead of 0, 0 now, I just picked a different spot. So your width is always the wider of the two dimensions. Your height is always a little smaller, usually. Well, let's just say for the sake of this class, it's going to be always, okay? So I did 36 by 48. So this one I'm going to make 42 by 30. So all I'm doing is dragging the cursor out and entering the dimension. And then I'm going to type CL to close it. One more time, applying. Now I'm going to do 36 to 24. And again, close it. So there's your borders. Okay. So that's the actual extent of a white piece of paper that you would have in a wide format plotter. So think photocopier, but for engineering drawings. So large scale. I'll bring a set of these drawings in one day and show you guys. But right here, you have three different size title blocks: 24 by 36, 30 by 42, 36 by 48. Okay. Now we're going to start talking about some other commands. Okay. The first one is offset. So offsetting is real handy because you don't have to redraw something. You can just take something and make a copy of it, make a duplicate of it in a particular direction. So you saw on the drawings that I showed you pictures of that my little border was not right at the extent of the page. Because if you draw a line, a black line right at the edge of the paper, you're never going to see it, right? So let's go with a margin on our page, okay? So I'm going to type offset, okay? So that's the command, or O is the macro, or you can hover over this icon right here, okay? The first thing you need to know is what's your border? Is it going to be a 1-inch border, a 1/2 inch border, 3/4 of an inch border? It's kind of up to you. I'm going to go with 3/4 of an inch. So it's asking on the command line, if you just look down at the command line, offset distance. Okay, I want 3/4 of an inch. So it's 0.75. Offset in, offset in, offset in. So now on each of these, I have a 3/4 inch border all the way around the sheet. Now, on my drawing, I only had a single line border. you can make that a 3-line border or a 4-line border, like however technically complex you want to make your border, you can, right? You can make it look more like a picture frame than just a single line. Again, it's your preference, okay? So that's offsetting. So now, let's say we make a decision that we want to go with either a bottom or side title block for our working drawing, right? So now you can see this is one element, right? It's one continuous line. If I wanted to have individual lines that I could offset, I could explode this, right? So you can, again, spell out the word explode. Type EX. I should say some macros are different depending upon, some companies will customize the macros. Okay, so just be wary of that. Not necessarily every time, like I typed EX is explode, but some companies might have EX be extend. You can change how that operates in the background. So just be wary that in the stations that are in Acopian, you might not have the same exact commands. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode this so I have individual line segments to work with. And again, you can always just type out the word. So I'm going to select the one that I want to have individual segments of. And there it is. Now each of these is an individual segment. Now let's say I wanted to go with a bottom title block and I want it to be 1.5 inches. Well, there's 1.5 inches. That seems a little small to me. I'm going to erase what I just did. Erase is this little eraser up here. Okay. If you like the tool buttons, so I'm gonna take an aside here real quick. If you like these tool buttons, okay, and you don't see them when you launch Civil 3D for the first time, if you pick a spot on the border that you see how this area is like a dark gray and this is a lighter gray, if you put your pointer cursor over that area and right click, see this first line is CAD. These are all of the different tool buttons that you can bring in. Okay, so that one that I just turned off is modify. Okay, I'm going to turn off modify 2. That one disappeared. It'll bring it back wherever it was the last time. Okay. Explode. Exploding, like I said, takes something and breaks it apart into segments. You can rejoin something by going to poly edit. Or P edit, I'm sorry, right? So if you select this line, it's saying, well, it's not currently a polyline. Do you want to turn it into? If you tell it yes, then you get this cluster of commands that you can say, okay, I want to join this, 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 and this. Now, if I list it again, I put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Okay. It's no longer 4 individual segments. It is now one joined segment. Okay. So erasing, you can get rid of something. Some of the other useful commands that you might find helpful. All right, let's say I draw myself a logo over here and I want to move it to where I want it. Okay, here's a circle. And let's do some text. So I'm going to type mtext. Right. mtext is a text editor that looks kind of similar to a word processing program. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that like Word does, but so I'm going to zoom in and I just wrote my name. Or I could write my initials. Okay. How tall is this? If I select this, right? If I select this element, the text, and I right click, and I go to properties, I get this display here. And it's telling me that my text type is 0.2 of an inch tall. It's 0.2 tall. Right now, it's standard, so you can make it something else. You can make it a different font, okay? So you can go in and type the word style, and you can make a new style, or you can stick with what's standard in the drawing. So that's how you'd edit the text height. So let's say I want it to be smaller. Let's say I only want it to be 0.1 of an inch tall. Okay. The smaller text is for like initials and things like that, the way you saw in the examples that I showed. Okay. The smallest that I would go is 0.12. The smallest that I would go is 0.12 on your text height. Okay. So I'm going to move this over out of the way. So now let's say I wanted to put this in my title block. Let's say I spent a little bit of time and made myself a fancy company logo, right? I have it all done. How do I move it, right? You can just type the word move. Select objects. I want to select what I want to move. And then it asks you, where's your base point? So I want to move it from here to here. Let's say you're working in your title block and you have a bunch of different text that, okay, the project title, the date, the revision, initials. Revisions are usually done by the person's initials who's doing them. Is it revision 1, 2, or 3? Okay. Multiple things you want to duplicate. So if you have that, that's called copy. Okay. So on the tool buttons, there's move, there's rotate. So let's say, oh, okay, I want to draw it so I can see it, but now I want to rotate. I can just rotate stuff. If I want to duplicate something, right, you can come up here to copy, and you can copy it multiple times. Let's say I copied it too many times and I want to erase it. That's my little, it looks literally like a pencil, or you can type the word erase. Okay. Some other helpful tools, right, are called OSnaps. So OSnaps look like this. So what OSnaps are, so you have endpoint, midpoint, intersection. A parent intersection is if you have two lines that are in three-dimensional space. So you can see them, they overlap, but one in its Z coordinate is closer to you than the other. Okay. Intersection is if they are on the same plane. Center is the center of a circle. Quadrant is the quadrant of a circle. Tangent would be if you're drawing a line tangent to a circle. Perpendicular is if, you know, you're going to make it 90 degrees to whatever you're working with. Okay. And you can run with these things turned on. Okay. So how does this work? All right. I'm going to move this up out of the way a little bit. Let's say I wanted to draw a line at the midpoint of my title block down here on the bottom. So I'm going to do line. Right. So these work inside of another command. It's kind of like a compound command. So I want to draw a line, but I can kind of get close, but you see how I'm not like really sure where I am. Okay. One of the ways you can do this is go to midpoint. So if I do line and then select midpoint, I can do it this way. I'm going to erase, or I can do line and then type out midpoint on the command line. So if you look down here, I can type line and then mid, and I'm doing the same thing. So now where do I stop it? Okay. I can just draw the line and then use a command called trim. So it asks you, what do you want to cut to? That's the first thing. And then you hit enter, and then you select the item you want to trim. Let's say I didn't make it long enough. I want to extend the line. Extend. Select the thing that you want to extend to, then select the thing you want to extend. That's pretty handy. All right, let's say that in this corner of the title block, I wanted to have two columns for, let's say, somebody's initials and a date. Okay. There's a couple ways you can do it. Okay. You can do offset. And you can do a 1/2 inch offset. That looks a little small. Don't like that, so we erase it. Go back, offset. Let's do 1 inch. That looks a little better. So now I have two 1 inch offsets. Okay. Let's say you want different offsets, different distances and spaces. So let's say the first one, we want to be 1 inch, then 1.5 inches, then 3 inches, then 5 inches. Okay, so if I do a circle, right, from the end point, I can do 3/4, and then I can do another circle from the end point of the same line and do, so if I did 3/4 and I want another inch off of that, I can do the math and do 1 3/4, or I could just start offsetting my circle, right? So I could offset and now do a 3 inch offset. And now do a, let me back up. So if I spell out offset on my command line, I give it the distance that I want to offset, 3. So now the distance between these two circles where they intersect this line is 3 inches. Now I want to do 5 inches. Okay. Now I have some construction lines to work with. Now I can move this line that I started with from this endpoint to this intersection. I could copy it, copy what you want to copy. It asks you for your starting point. So I'm going to copy from there and select my intersection, select my next intersection, select my next intersection. Then when I'm done, all of the stuff that I used to construct it, my construction lines, I can just erase. Okay. Now let's say that's sort of the extent of what I want to do for now. Okay. I can trim this line to that point. Now let's say I want 1/4 inch lines for my revision block. All I'm doing is just continually offsetting, offset, enter the distance that you want, 0.25, grab the direction you want to go and offset. So select the line, select the direction, hit offset. Let's say I want this space open for my logo. So now I can do trim. I can trim between 2 objects. So select those 2. Now in my title block, things line up from one end to the other. Okay. So that's some simple commands. So here is your, in AutoCAD, that is your basic draw command line. So you see how I just turned it off? I go back in here to AutoCAD, draw, line, polyline, polygon, rectangle, circle, revision cloud, arc, lots of stuff. Okay. So here, oh, they changed it. So back when quite a few years ago, when they switched CAD from a DOS-based program to a Windows-based program, the first icon for explode was actually a stick of dynamite. I guess that's politically incorrect now. So it's now a cube that looks like it's shattered. Okay. Blending curves is exactly what it sounds like. You have a bunch of curves that you're going to put together. Fillet, that's interesting. Let's look at that. So if I want to do a fillet, it's a rounded corner. Okay. So the first thing you need to tell it is what radius do you want? Like a 1/2 inch. So select the first line, select the second line. Now you have a radius. Let's say you do something in CAD that you don't like. Okay. All you have to do is type undo. And it puts it back to the way it was. If you undo 3 things, but you do it too quickly, and you undo a 4th thing, but you didn't want to undo the 4th thing, you can always type the word redo, and it will redo what you just undid. Okay. So that's a helpful feature. Let's say I don't like rounded corners. Let's say I like angled corners. So you can do something called a chamfer. Most chamfers are uniform, and they're usually done by distance. So if I do a 1/2 inch chamfer, it asks me for my second distance. It's a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to just say 1/2 inch for now. You see how this distance and this distance are 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch? If I go back in and type D for distance, do the first one as 0.5 and the second one as 0.75, you can see it does X first and Y second. And then it puts an angle. I'm going to erase all of these things and I'm going to put my tool buttons back where I want them. Some companies are very restrictive about changing the tool button and layout. Some companies, you can set it up to your personalization and liking. I'm going to say for this class, you can set it up however you want to set it up. Okay. You don't have to leave it the way it was when you launched the program to start. Okay. Let's talk about saving your work, auto saves, and printing. And that's going to be the last three things we're going to cover. Okay. I really should have gone over saving first because I really don't want you to spend 3 hours on something and then all of a sudden you exit it and it's not there. Okay. So the way you save the drawing is you can type the word save, or you can select the little save icon. It'll think for a second and say, okay, where do you want me to put this? Okay. I want to put it on my C drive. Or you could put it on your Google Drive, or you could put it wherever, right? And I want to call it title block and my initials. Okay. After I save it the first time, you could put it on a flash drive, you could put it wherever you want. Okay. Save, and like I said, you could put it. It didn't allow me to save it. If you saw that error that I got, it said it couldn't save it to that location. You want to pay attention to that, because if you need to move it to a different location so that it saves, I don't want you to lose your work. Okay. So be sure that you're saving frequently. So once you save it for the first time, if you go up and just hit save, and it'll save wherever you're at. This is not like a Google Sheet where it automatically is saving as you go. You have to tell it to save. Okay, so don't lose your work. Another handy feature in CAD is sometimes you get wrapped up and you're working for 2 hours. You can do something called auto saves. Okay. If you go to open and save, it's the third tab in. You can do an auto save every 5 minutes. Now, if you change this, you have to hit apply or it's not going to remember. And then come over here to files, right? And it gives you the location where it's saving your automatic saves. Okay. So be wary of that. Okay. So that's saving. And you can also do file, save as. You can make a duplicate of it and rename it. Okay. So file save, automatic save. Let's talk about printing and plotting. So now I want to plot this. Okay. You hit your little printer icon, or you type plot, or you type print. Oh, I'm sorry, print won't work. You have to type plot. Or you could hit the little printer icon up here in the corner. You can go and select, if you were at an office and you wanted to print a paper copy of your work, you could do that. Okay. These are the different printers I have available here at my office. But almost every program, you're going to have the ability to print to Adobe. Okay. I'm going to set up a template drawing eventually where you have different pen styles. The default for right now is going to be none. Okay. So my title block, I don't remember what size I went with, so I'm going to do a distance from the end point to the end point. So I did 36 by 48. So I'm going to zoom extent. I'm going to go back to print. I'm going to print it to Adobe. And then down here, right? See how it doesn't have 24 by 36 or so. D is 36 by 24, arch D. E is 36 by 48, and E1 is 30 by 42. Okay. So I'm going to go, and you can also do a custom page size. So if this isn't showing up in your version of CAD at Acopian, you can always print a custom page size. But I know I'm architectural E. I'm going to print extents. I'm going to center my plot. I'm not going to fit the paper. I'm going to make it 1-to-1. Oh, see there? It has a built-in margin. Okay. So what I could do is I could erase my outer border, but for right now, I'm going to leave it on so we could see what it looks like. Okay. So then I'm going to hit OK. And it gives me some warnings. The annotation scale isn't equal to the plot scale. Is that okay? I'm just going to hit continue for now, just so we could see a picture of where we are. So now, same thing with saving. You need to specify a location where you want it to put your file. Little thing. And usually it automatically creates the drawing. So there, it kept the colors that we had. It kept blue. Okay. There is a way that you can make it black and white. So if you go to print, right now, it's set to black and white. I'm sorry, it's set to color. For right now, let's just leave whatever the default is. If the computers at Acopian have a black and white one, send it to black and white. If it's only color, that's okay too. So that's how you would create your CAD file. That's how you'd save your CAD file. And that's how you would create a PDF export of your drawing. So with that, I think I'm going to let you guys watch the video and maybe watch the video and do the work at the same time. Like I said, take a look at some just Google the word title block and see what you get. I will warn you, there are some fairly elaborate ones. So I'm not looking for, the most technically complex title block in the world. I do want you to come up with a company name, come up with your own, and then as a group decide together, like vote on it. So each of the 3 members of your team come up with your own company name and your own company logo and your own company title block, and then vote on which ones you like the best. And you can take elements from each one. Like if you like somebody else's company name, but everybody likes your title block better, all you got to do is change the name of the title block. Or same thing with the logo. You can have one person select the logo, one person select the company name and one person selected title block, and kind of make a mishmash of it and put it together. Because once you have it together, it's fairly easy. And you can take somebody else's drawing, their title block, insert it into yours as a block and just move stuff around. So that's saving, automatic saves, and printing. And with that, I'm going to turn you loose. As always, you can reach me on my cell phone. You can reach me via email, text, whatever's easiest for you. So have fun and good luck, and I will talk to you soon.